For 31 years, he was a ghost, a name without a face, a killer without a cage. He lived next door. He went to church on Sunday mornings. He shook hands at city council meetings. He waved to his neighbors from the driveway, and for 3 decades, nobody, not the FBI, not the Wichita Police Department, not the hundreds of detectives who worked the case, nobody could find him. His name was Dennis Rader, and he called himself BTK, bind, torture, kill. Those 3 words were more than a nickname. They were a declaration, a brand, an identity he wore like a second skin, while the rest of the world saw only a quiet, unremarkable man from Kansas. This is the story of how one of America's most elusive serial killers hid in plain sight, and how, after more than 3 decades, a single floppy disk brought him down. This is Case Noir, tonight, BTK. Dennis Lynn Rader was born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, a small town, a quiet upbringing, nothing on the surface to suggest what was growing underneath. He was the oldest of 4 brothers. His father worked for Kansas Gas and Electric. His mother worked at a local bank. By all accounts, it was an ordinary American family. But Rader himself would later say that even as a child, he felt different. He described disturbing fantasies that began in adolescence, violent urges he didn't understand and couldn't control. He tortured animals. He fantasized about domination. He called this dark side of himself a separate entity, a monster he referred to as Factor X. After graduating high school, Rader joined the United States Air Force, serving from 1966 to 1970. He was stationed in various locations, including Japan, and by all military accounts, he was an unremarkable but functional serviceman. After his discharge, he attended Wichita State University, eventually earning a degree in administration of justice, a degree in the very field that would one day hunt him. He married Paula Dietz in 1971. They had 2 children. He became a member of Christ Lutheran Church, eventually rising to become president of the church council, a position of trust, of community leadership, of moral authority. He worked as a compliance officer for the city of Park City, Kansas, where neighbors described him as strict, sometimes overbearing, but always present, always involved, always there, the perfect mask, because behind it, Dennis Rader had already begun to kill. January 15, 1974, a cold winter morning in Wichita, Kansas. Joseph Otero left for work early. His wife Julie stayed home with the kids. What happened next would traumatize an entire city for decades. When authorities arrived at the Otero home on South Edgemore Street, they found 4 members of the same family bound and killed. Joseph Otero, 38 years old, his wife Julie, 34, their son Joey, just 9 years old, and their daughter Josie, only 11. Each had been strangled, each had been bound, each had been killed with terrifying calm and precision. It was BTK's first confirmed attack, and it was not impulsive, it was rehearsed. Rader had been watching the Otero family for weeks. He knew their schedule. He knew when they'd be vulnerable. He cut the phone lines before entering. He had a plan, and he executed it with chilling efficiency. In the months and years that followed, BTK continued. March 1977, Shirley Vian, 24, strangled in her home while her children were locked in a bathroom nearby. December 1977, Nancy Fox, 25, a young woman living alone, strangled in her bedroom. BTK called the police himself to report her murder. He wanted credit. He needed it. The pattern was always the same: surveillance, selection, approach, control, and then the kill. He targeted people who were alone or vulnerable. He cut phone lines. He brought his own supplies. He was organized, methodical, and utterly devoid of empathy. Between 1974 and 1991, BTK would be linked to at least 10 murders, 10 lives, 10 families destroyed, and not a single arrest. What made BTK uniquely terrifying wasn't just the murders, it was the letters. In October 1974, 9 months after the Otero killings, a letter was discovered inside a book at the Wichita Public Library. It had been placed there like a bookmark, waiting to be found. In it, BTK described the Otero murders in precise detail. He named himself. He coined the acronym bind, torture, kill, and he demanded that the media cover his crimes. It was the opening move in a psychological chess match that would span decades. Over the next 30 years, BTK sent dozens of communications to the Wichita Eagle newspaper, to local television stations, to the Wichita Police Department. He sent poems. He sent hand-drawn sketches of his victims in bondage. He sent word puzzles and ciphers. He included crime scene details that only the killer could know. He was performing. He craved an audience. In one letter, he wrote, "How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?" He wanted fame. He wanted fear. He wanted to be known. And for a time, he got all of it. The letters were postmarked from different cities. The writing was careful, deliberate. He never left fingerprints. He never left DNA, at least not in a way that could be matched to a suspect. He taunted investigators with references to literature, to criminology, even to other serial killers. He studied the genre of his own evil. He knew how killers were profiled, and he used that knowledge to stay one step ahead. Investigators were dealing with something they had rarely encountered before. A killer who was not only organized, but intellectually engaged with the investigation of his own crimes. The Wichita Police Department knew they were dealing with something extraordinary. In 1974, they formed a dedicated BTK task force, one of the first of its kind in American law enforcement history. Detectives interviewed thousands of people. They cataloged every piece of evidence. They brought in the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, the same division that pioneered criminal profiling. The profile they developed was remarkably accurate. A white male, likely in his 30s or 40s, organized, probably employed, possibly in a position of authority, someone who lived or worked near the crime scenes. They were describing Dennis Rader almost perfectly, but without a name to attach to the profile, it was useless. Through the late 1970s and 1980s, BTK went increasingly quiet. There were periods of silence lasting years. Investigators didn't know if he had moved, died, been imprisoned for another crime, or simply stopped. In 1988, BTK killed his last confirmed victim, Maureen Hedge, 53, a neighbor of Rader's who lived just down the street from his own home. In 1991, he killed Dolores Davis, 62, and then, nothing. Silence for 13 years. The case went cold. Detectives retired. New officers took over. The files grew thick with dead ends. But the victims' families never stopped waiting, never stopped hoping that someone, somewhere, would find him. The community of Wichita carried the weight of BTK like a shadow. Parents warned their children. Women double-checked their locks. The fear never fully left, because the killer never fully disappeared. He was still there, still in Wichita, still going to church, still waving from the driveway. In 2004, something shifted. After 13 years of silence, BTK resurfaced. A package arrived at the Wichita Eagle newspaper containing a copy of a driver's license belonging to one of his victims, a chapter from a book about a serial killer, and a word puzzle. He was back, and he wanted everyone to know it. Over the next several months, BTK sent a flurry of new communications, more than a dozen packages and letters in less than a year. He sent cereal boxes with hidden messages. He sent postcards. He sent jewelry taken from his victims. He was energized, reckless, and crucially, he started asking questions. In one communication, he asked investigators directly, if he sent a computer disk, could they trace it back to him? Investigators, in a move that would prove decisive, responded through a local newspaper ad. No, they lied. In February 2005, a purple floppy disk arrived at a local Fox News affiliate in Wichita. On it were documents related to his crimes, but also something else, metadata. Hidden in the digital files was a deleted document from Christ Lutheran Church, and embedded in that document was a single name, Dennis. Investigators cross-referenced it with the church's records. Dennis Rader, president of the church council, compliance officer, family man, neighbor. On February 25, 2005, a DNA sample taken from Rader's daughter, obtained through a court order from a pH smear on file at a Kansas State University medical facility, was compared to DNA recovered from a BTK crime scene. It was a match. Dennis Rader was BTK. After 31 years, they had him. On March 31, 2005, Dennis Rader was pulled over in his vehicle near his home in Park City, Kansas. He was arrested without incident. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He sat in the back of the police car, quiet, composed, almost as if he had been expecting it. His co-workers at Park City's City Hall were stunned. His fellow churchgoers couldn't believe it. His neighbors stood on their lawns and watched the police tape go up, trying to reconcile the man they knew, the strict but familiar compliance officer, the church president, with the monster the news was describing. His wife Paula was devastated. She filed for divorce within weeks of his arrest. His children, who had no knowledge of their father's crimes, were left to process a trauma that had no precedent. In June 2005, Rader appeared in court and pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. What followed was one of the most chilling courtroom moments in American criminal history. For hours, Rader described each murder in exhaustive detail, calmly, methodically, almost academically. He spoke about his victims as if recounting a project he had completed. He described their fear, their suffering, his own actions, without a tremor in his voice, without a tear in his eye. Prosecutors, detectives, and the families of victims sat and listened in horrified silence. In August 2005, Judge Gregory Waller sentenced Dennis Rader to 10 consecutive life sentences, the maximum allowed under Kansas law, which had no death penalty at the time of his crimes. He will never be eligible for parole. He will die in prison. He is currently incarcerated at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas, where he remains to this day. The BTK case left a permanent mark on American law enforcement. It changed how investigators approach cold cases, how they handle communications from suspects, and how they use digital forensics. The floppy disk that brought Rader down became a landmark moment in the history of forensic technology, a reminder that even the most careful killers leave traces, and that technology will always eventually catch up. The case also deepened our understanding of a particular and terrifying type of criminal: the organized, socially integrated killer, the one who doesn't match the profile we expect, the one who holds down a job, raises a family, serves his community, and kills in the spaces between. Psychologists who studied Rader described him as a textbook example of a psychopath with narcissistic and sadistic traits, someone who experienced no genuine empathy, who viewed other human beings as objects to be controlled, and who derived his sense of identity and power entirely from domination. His need for recognition, the letters, the poems, the packages, was ultimately his undoing. He couldn't stay silent. He couldn't let the world forget him. And that compulsion, that need to be seen and feared and known, is what led him directly into a trap of his own making. The victims of Dennis Rader: Joseph, Julie, Joey, and Josie Otero, Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Anna Williams, Maureen Hedge, Vicki Wegerly, Dolores Davis, are remembered. Their names deserve to be spoken. Their lives deserve to be lived. The BTK case is not a story about Dennis Rader's cleverness. It's a story about the persistence of the people who never stopped looking, the detectives who worked the case for decades, the families who never stopped demanding answers, and the investigators who, in the end, outsmarted a man who thought he was untouchable. This is Case Noir, where darkness meets the truth. The BTK killer is behind bars, and that's where he'll stay. Thank you for watching.